Hi there guys, welcome to the Reykjavik review, and the reason I look a tad nervous is that normally when I review a European series, which is kind of my thing, hence the channel name, I start off by introducing the series, stating what country produced it, where it's set, and what language it's in. With this series, pinning those things down is like finding the Higgs boson particle. We technically know that it is in a language, but don't ask me to repeat the finding. In all seriousness, it is mostly in Flemish, which is a Belgian variation of Dutch, but one of the main characters is Dutch, Hollandaise maybe? And if you're wondering what Flemish sounds like, I can describe that. It sounds like someone who is fluent in French, English, Danish, German, and Russian, got crazy drunk, and is now speaking all of those at the same time. And just in case you weren't confused enough, in this series there is also a reasonable amount of Netherlands Dutch, French, German, some English, though surprisingly little, and some Spanish and Italian. This series is so linguistically diverse that the original title of this Belgium-Netherlands co-production is Undercover. That's not the translated title, that is the title. I wonder, in that part of the world, are they smoking so much weed that they don't even know what language they speak? Please comment if you're Dutch and you can still find your keyboard. I think these letters mean something, dude. However, as linguistically confused as this series is, the plot is not at all confused. That is not to say that it's simplistic, which you might think from the title, Undercover, just that happily, this series knows what it's about, and equally importantly, what it's not about. I've seen far too many series lately that just don't know what to spend their time on, and so spend a little bit of time on everything. With Undercover, it was refreshing to finally get a series with maybe one or two exceptions. Every scene has its reason to be. To quickly summarize the plot, two cops, a man and a woman, move into a tight-knit community across the way from a drug kingpin in what is supposedly the ecstasy capital of Europe, and they have to become friends with him in order to infiltrate his operation, but they have to do this obviously without arousing his suspicion. It doesn't sound like anything new, right? I read a somewhat critical but very generic article about just the first episode of Undercover that basically said, well, it seems okay, but not amazing. But I would say that the first episode is by far the least interesting. So if you're wanting to know whether to watch it and for some reason you don't trust my opinion, which you obviously should, just watch the first episode. And if you think that that's even okay, it gets better from there, so you should keep going. If you've seen my other reviews, you know that I can be quite harsh sometimes. But it feels weird to sit here and say Undercover did the following things well, when in my view, they should always be done like that. For example, when there is a plot point, and then it is immediately discarded. I don't get that. Like Money Heist Season 2, for example. Two characters hate each other, next scene, oh, never mind, they're friends now. Oh no, he's got a gun. Actually, don't worry, it's not loaded. I don't understand why writing like that exists. It's not in the slightest bit interesting. In Undercover, things unfold. Characters grow to trust one another. They grow to be suspicious of one another. This is instead of single lines that somehow produce unconditional confidence in another person. There's one character, for example, that is suspicious of the protagonist the whole time, and there are other dynamics between the women that are not just an instant thing. They have chats, they have coffee, they have lunch, they have dinner, they do some drugs together. Everything is taken one realistic step at a time. And the whole way through this series, there is this sort of unspoken element of inner conflict for the cops, which is that in order to pretend to be friends with someone, you sort of have to actually be friends with them. So you get this undercurrent that the longer this goes on, the less the cops will actually want to make the arrest. Now, I'm not giving anything away because that's never actually stated. It's just a feeling I get. There is one scene, again, I won't say anything about when it is or where it is or what happens. It perfectly encapsulates all the dynamics of the relationships because there are about 5 undertones happening at once in the one scene. It's very clever, subtle writing. Also, the whole thing looks pretty good. Not incredible, the cinematography is a little bit dull, but and this is a weird thing to mention, I know, the titles are very, very cool. They're interspersed with the opening scene of every episode. I have seen that before, I can't remember where, but this is more bold than what we've seen before. This leaves the titles up for about 2 seconds longer than we want it to, because things are always happening that they won't show you. You can hear what's happening, but you can't see it because the titles are happening. The music helps too. We're not talking about the next best score to Johan Johansson's Trapped or anything like that, but it's definitely a decent score musically. All that said, this series isn't amazing. It's competent, it's exciting, sure, but somehow it's just not so enthralling that you're even thinking about it the next day while you're having breakfast, while you're going to work. It doesn't carve out a place in your life, if you get what I mean. I don't think that that's because of technical nitpicks. It's just that it's not as immersive or as character-based as something like The Bridge, for example. It's not as long as The Wire, so we don't get to follow around 40 characters for the whole time. So there's that, but there are also some specific things that I wanted to pick up on. One is that for a drug kingpin, I don't find Ferry Bauman to be suspicious enough. There are things that lead him to trust Bob, sure, but the confidence is bestowed a little bit too quickly to be realistic. On the same point, the undercover cops do stuff that is pretty careless for undercover cops. If you've seen movies like The Departed, you'll probably find these cops to be a little bit unrealistic in how far they don't go to assume their new identity. It's not a big deal. The only other criticism I have is about the ending, and there's no spoilers, I promise. The ending is very Netflixy. It's easily the most Netflixy part of the whole thing, because I found the whole thing to be very understated and brooding, which is not at all Netflix in my opinion. But Netflix rears its ugly head when at the end they make a hook for season 2 that is very blatant. Now, we knew there was going to be a season 2 because it's Netflix. But what's annoying is that it didn't need to be such blatant season bait as it was. There was easily enough hook for a season 2 already, but no, Netflix cannot help themselves. And they throw in the bait, and it's the least realistic part of the whole series. It was unnecessary, and Netflix is actually getting worse in this regard. Their best European series, which I've never reviewed here for various reasons, they basically just threw it to the dogs with the cheapest, most childish ending to a season you've ever seen, and it's all just because most people are dumb enough to fall for it and not see that what they've actually done is tainted a perfectly good work of art by painting over it in a bright colour. Stay tuned for season 3. Setting up for a follow-up season is fine. It's when you step outside the mood or the story, or in the case of the other series I mentioned, the entire premise of the whole series, just to say, watch season 2 or watch season 3. That's when it gets ugly. I mean, you might as well have a producer walk onto set with the other characters and light up and say, "And don't forget to watch season 2 with all the characters you love on Netflix." So, that rant out of the way, this is a very, very decent series, very mildly tainted by Netflix's blatant season baiting. What do you think about it? Please let me know in the comments, but please be respectful, and if you're going to post spoilers, herald them with spoilers, 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 because I have had to remove some comments lately in that they can just contain spoilers in like the first line. I don't want to make these reviews spoiler-free and then have someone spoil something in the comments, so please just be respectful in that regard. Guys, I specialize in reviewing foreign language TV shows with an increasing focus on European stuff, so if you like that kind of stuff, please subscribe. If you look at my subscriber count, you see that this is a very, very small channel. It really does help me out when you subscribe. I see all the new subscribers. I don't like watch them obsessively or anything. So yeah, I really do appreciate every new subscription. So please become a subscriber by clicking the thing. I'm sure you know how to do it. And I want to thank all the people who have done that already. I've got more videos coming out all the time, so I'll see you in a few days for the next one. Otherwise, wherever you are, whatever language you call your own, even if it's Flemish, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.